This forecast is brought to you by me. For information on readings I offer, check out my website at manic.mercurian.net, or you can reach out to me directly at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. And just a quick side note on that, all my birth chart readings that I'm doing are still 20% off. So if something like that would intrigue you, hit me up and I'd be more than happy to assist you. Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, December 12th through Sunday, December 18th, 2022. So this week we do have a couple things going on. Before I get into the details here, I wanted to just, I like to just look at the chart and just see kind of what's like the overall theme, what's going on here. And really, something I mentioned last week is that all the planets are pretty spread out right now. So in general, for everyone as a whole, the planets being, basically spread out like this, like we see here, it gives you the best shot at a normal time. And I say that knowing fully well that we are living through some very strange, unusual times of lots of semi-consistent change. So I understand all that. But compared to like last month, for example, this is more kind of normal. No matter what your chart looks like, you're gonna have some hard aspects. You're gonna have some easy aspects. It's kind of an even mix, so to speak. The next really major astrological events that we're gonna have are really in March. That's what I see. During March of 2023, we'll have almost all the planets lining up in Pisces and Aries. I think that's especially interesting since these are the last and first signs of the entire zodiac. So there's, a lot of potency there for sure. And then also March, we're going to have Pluto moving into Aquarius. That's a super big deal because Pluto has not changed signs since 2008. It's a very slow moving planet. So I just wanted to, kind of explain that before I begin here. But we do have some stuff that's going to be changing your day to day experience this week. The main thing I wanted to highlight is that we do have Mercury turning retrograde soon. Not this week, but this week we do have Mercury entering its pre-shadow. So what that means is Mercury's entering the area that it will retrograde back over in the near future. And just to give you some like factoids on this Mercury retrograde, the pre-shadow begins Monday, December 12th at 8 degrees Capricorn, and I'll of course talk more about that once I get into the day by day forecast. Mercury will turn retrograde at 24 degrees Capricorn on December 29th of this year of 2022, and it will stay retrograde until January 17th, 2023. And that will be the day that it again reaches 8 degrees Capricorn and turns direct. So I'd say that's like kind of the major thing going on as for our short-term experience here. We're kind of just we're sort of in this transition period that's it's like a pre-transition transition period, if that makes sense. We're moving closer to what is going to be a time of intense change. We're going to get a little bit of that with this Mercury retrograde, but especially in March, that's when things get really interesting. Besides the Mercury pre-shadow, and again, I'm going to talk more about that really soon here. But besides that, we do have Mercury and Venus recently in Capricorn. They both just entered Capricorn last week, and that's kind of what's contributing to this really even mix. Sun's in Sagittarius, so we've got some fire. Moon will be in Leo, Virgo, and Libra this week. Mercury and Venus are in Capricorn, which is Earth. So, there's a pretty decent mix elementally, in the zodiac right now. We will get a little bit of turbulence this week with the third quarter moon. It's happening in Virgo at 24 degrees. So, like I explained in the last forecast when we had the Gemini full moon, whenever you're mixing two planetary bodies that are both in mutable signs, it can be very hectic. There's so many different things going on at the same time. It really tests our adaptability skills and our kind of multitasking skills as well. Okay, so with all that being said, let's just get into the day by day forecast here. So we start out Monday, December 12th with Moon in Leo, and this is really beautiful because Moon is beginning to step into a trine with the Sun. That will be exact on Tuesday, but we'll already be feeling it on Monday. So I really love this for a Monday for the start of a week, having not only the Sun in a fire sign, but Moon, is very agreeable to that. Sun in Sagittarius, Moon in Leo. These signs have a lot in common. They blend together very well. And when the moon is trining the sun like this, or when it's about to trine the sun like this, it gives you kind of the best shot of everyone being in a pretty stable, like harmonious, kind of good mood. That's sort of the vibe of the aspect. And because this is happening in fire signs, it's really conducive toward beginnings, self-expression, energy, being energetic, being active, taking action, taking initiative. All of that is definitely in the cards for Monday. So that's kind of perfect for the beginning of a week, I think. Okay, and then we do have two things going on. So Mercury enters its pre-shadow at 8 degrees, like I just mentioned in the intro. So a lot of people kind of gloss over the pre-shadow, I think. So, bear with me if you already understand this, but I'll just give you my take on Mercury pre-shadow. Okay, so of course, Mercury is still direct, like I kind of explained. It's still going to be direct until December 29th. But between now, December 12th, and December 29th, Mercury it is direct, but it's in an area that it's about to go back over, about to retrograde over. So what that basically means is right now Mercury's traveling so fast, and because it represents the intellect, the mind, communication, information, all of this like mental kind of stuff, it basically means that there's so much going on for us right now that we're not fully integrating everything. It's almost impossible to. So there may be a lot in your life that you're not really noticing or fully appreciating or fully digesting. Okay, and that's okay. Sometimes like Mercury changes its speed pretty dramatically, and that represents how the mental energy kind of works. Sometimes it slows down and we really have time to process things, and other times like right now we're just fully in uncharted territory. We're being bombarded by nothing. For most of us, I wouldn't say it's anything like super monumental. It's just a lot of just different kind of stimuli, different information, different new activities, new events going on. It's just a lot of kind of stuff, if that makes sense. So it's just too much to fully experience, I guess. So that's what happens in the pre-shadow. So that it's kind of setting us up for the retrograde, where we will have the chance to go back over and maybe learn some things. Maybe something that's happening right now that you're not fully experiencing or aware of, you'll become more aware of, or you'll have a new perspective on once Mercury is retrograde. That type of thing. Something like that. So I hope that makes sense. But that's kind of my take on Mercury pre-shadow. Because it's in Capricorn, this could specifically have to do with managing resources or time management. Also, anything involving planning for the future. So maybe I don't know. Maybe you have a certain like set priorities right now, and they may change kind of dramatically during Mercury retrograde, if that makes sense. So it's definitely nothing to be afraid of. I don't think this is about like trying to figure everything out, while Mercury's in pre-shadow. I think it's more. I would take the course of just accepting that there's probably stuff going on right now that I don't understand, and that's okay. We all do our best. That's what the Mercury retrograde is for. It gives you a chance to kind of catch up. Okay, and we do have one aspect happening on Monday as well. So Sun is sextiling Saturn. Sun at 20 degrees Sagittarius makes a waning sextile to Saturn at 20 degrees Aquarius. I think this is kind of beautiful. Sextiles are harmonious aspects. Sextiles are not super domineering aspects. They don't dominate the day like for example the moon trining sun on Tuesday. That's something that's very stable. It's consistently tangible. Sun sextiling Saturn like this, it's kind of fleeting. It's not going to be super strong for you unless you have planets around 20 degrees Aquarius and or Sagittarius. So it's an energy that kind of comes and goes. But what this has to do is sort of it's like a teamwork or cooperation between Sun and Sagittarius, which is representing this like holiday vibe, this vibe that has to do with really a lot of things. I'm not gonna get too sidetracked into this, but Sun and Sagittarius is about enjoying the moment, eat, drink, and be merry type of vibe, but also about expanding our consciousness through learning, through experiences. So both through knowledge as well as experiences. That's basically like Sun and Sagittarius in a nutshell. So kind of a lot of things. But there's this mutual kind of agreement between that and what Saturn in Aquarius is representing, which is more about obligation and duty, especially involving our community, the future of our community, or our future with our community, that type of thing. Whatever community is for you, that can look like a lot of different things, like your town, or it could be the people you work with, it could be your extended family, and it also has a lot to do with online activity as well. So, what kind of obligations or duties do you have online or with your online communities, that type of thing. So I know there's a lot of themes that I just really glossed over really quickly, but there's this the connection between these two archetypes. So maybe just having maybe just having an easier time formulating plans or living up to obligations, or also on Monday there could be it may just be easier to know how to invest your time, energy, money, your resources, maybe easier to plan. I think both Aquarius and Sagittarius are very much like forward thinkers. They're kind of goal oriented, in a more spontaneous way than like Capricorn, I think. But they're both definitely thinking about like, okay, where are we going? What's the next step? Type of thing. So yeah, with Sun sextile Saturn, maybe very easy to formulate plans or goals, especially again related to learning, community, stuff like that. Okay, let's go forward to Tuesday, December 13th. So this is where we get that exact trine between the moon and the sun. And again, this is really, really beautiful. Trines are the easiest aspect. They're very harmonious because whenever planets trine, they're typically in energies that are very much agreeable to each other. They blend together easily because they're similar. In this case, Sun in Sagittarius at 21 degrees, and looks like just before noon Eastern Standard Time, maybe like around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you'd get the exact trine with the moon at 21 degrees Leo. So Sagittarius and Leo, they're both fire signs. They both have to do with being spontaneous and a little bit sporadic, being kind of impulsive, just live in the moment and act from the heart. That's what the fire signs are best at, and that's what makes them so charismatic, and that's what makes them great leaders. They're very bold, very confident. So this is the energy that we are all experiencing, each in our own way on especially Tuesday. Like I said, we're going to be feeling this already on Monday, but Tuesday is where we get that exact trine, and then we still have Moon in Leo all day, the rest of Tuesday as well. So this is really fun, easy. I think, especially because this is happening in fire signs. I think fire signs in general, like objectively for all of us, are the easiest to experience because they correspond to the beginning of a cycle. And I think for us humans, we love beginning things. We don't really like endings, even though it's all part of a cycle. It's all natural. But for whatever reason, we just really love beginning things when it's all exciting. We don't like to end things. So yeah, so this is a lot of fiery energy. It's a lot of happy-go-lucky, strong, stable fire energy too. Especially because Moon is in Leo, which is fixed fire. So we're all feeling a little bit more confident, more cocky, more I don't know, more willing to be adventurous or outgoing in some kind of way. And even if you're like the most introverted homebody person in the world, you may still feel maybe a bit more impulsive, or maybe just wanting to kind of treat yourself or act in a more independent type of way. All of that is in line with these fire signs as well. Okay, that was short, but I feel like I pretty much nailed that. I'm going to continue on here. So for Wednesday, December 14th, Moon does move into Virgo pretty early in the day, in the kind of early morning Eastern Standard Time. So pretty much for the most, almost all of the day we have, excuse me, we have Moon in Virgo, and Virgo does square Sagittarius. So in other words, Moon is beginning to almost kind of start, stepping into a square with the Sun, and that's going to be that third quarter Moon we have later in the week. But as for Wednesday, Moon is still pretty far off from that exact aspect. It's only squaring the Sun by sign, so there may already be a little bit of a grittiness there, and I think this can be maybe just a tiny bit of a rude awakening from Tuesday, because Tuesday we have such these strong, stable, fiery energies that I was talking about. And then Wednesday moon moves into Virgo, which is it's just so much different. And I think this may not be like astrologically politically correct to say, but I think the when planets transit from Leo to Virgo, it can be a buzzkill. Excuse me. And I say that, I have a lot of Virgo energy myself, so I'm not trying to diss Virgos at all. I just think, the Virgo energy itself, when we experience it, and I think any Virgo could testify to this, it's kind of a challenging energy. Virgo's all about self-improvement and organization. It's just very different from Leo, which is all about, more like enjoying the moment and just being carefree. So it can be a rude awakening, I think, especially for people who are not expecting this, going from, let's just be happy and act in the moment to, okay, we need to be a little bit more serious, practical, organized, let's improve things, that type of thing. This is really excellent for improving things, but improving things is not always fun, if that makes sense. So definitely a kind of a shift in gears here. Moon still has some great aspects though. It's already trining Venus, a little bit after noon Eastern Standard Time, and then much later in the day, I think it would actually be early Thursday, Moon will step into a trine with Mercury as well. So it's still trining these inner planets, but this is all about kind of Earth now rather than fire. Moon is beginning to make these trines to Venus and Mercury. So this is really putting the focus on Virgo and Capricorn, which are Earth signs. They're practical. They're about improvement, planning, details, making sure everything is sustainable. That's what they really desire. So that's more kind of the focus here as we get to Wednesday. We do have one aspect as well. So Sun at 22 degrees Sagittarius makes a square to Neptune at 22 degrees Pisces. And I still think it's interesting. Saturn and Neptune are at 20 and 22 degrees respectively of their respective signs, if that makes sense. So it's kind of interesting how you get this one-two punch with planets such as the Sun in this example. Sun, almost immediately after aspecting Saturn, just 2 days later aspects Neptune. So I just think it's kind of interesting that we're getting these aspects from the Sun to these more outer planets because it channels in, it funnels in that outer planet energy into our day-to-day moment, throughout this week. And in general, outer planet energies are much more kind of weird. Um, Excuse me, they're kind of weird is such a cop out. They're very strange, I think, because they have to do with energies that are very abstract and more far-reaching, having to do with society or the far future or the far past or very like abstract or metaphysical kind of concepts. So it's more kind of weird, unusual, that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I just said mostly affects really the whole week in general. But Wednesday specifically, Sun squaring Neptune is definitely no exception. Neptune is it makes things kind of confusing and it shows us a side of reality that is true, but it's sort of subjectively true. We're only seeing one side of it, and that side of it is it's our side of it. It's our version. It's difficult to quantify or measure. It's in other words, it's not objective. So this can be very confusing, especially because this is a square. So squares are contentious aspects. This is happening in Sagittarius and Pisces, both signs that are ruled by Jupiter. So both of these signs have to do with like spirituality and exploration, expanding our souls and our minds through experiences, or could be information as well. But I think it's mostly like adventure or experiencing a different custom or gaining some kind of like full philosophical information, that type of thing. So in other words, Wednesday, um, on the one hand, it's increasingly about organization, planning, let's be practical, but then at the same time, there's also this completely other element going on, more having to do with let's be philosophical and kind of just dream about things. Let's explore metaphysics or spirituality, or let's just kind of, could have to do with losing yourself in some way as well. Neptune and Pisces is all about that. losing ourselves in music or sleep, like slowing the mind down, going into like a trance. So there's a lot of healthy ways that you can do that. There's also a lot of unhealthy ways we can do that as well. Because this is a square between Neptune and the Sun and Sagittarius, I think Sun and Sagittarius can provoke us to overconsume. There's this element of like overabundance that can happen. So mixing that with Neptune and Pisces, which does have to do with escapism, I think you can see where I'm going with this. This, in its best light, could just be looking within and delving into astrology or tarot or dreams or something like that. But on the other hand, I think it may be tempting, maybe dangerous to maybe like overindulge in drugs or alcohol or things of that nature. Or it could be just escapism could also just have to do with isolating yourself, which I think is good to some extent, but obviously it can be detrimental as well. That type of thing. So hopefully you kind of get my drift there, but I'm not gonna go through like every example of how this aspect can work, how the escapism can work, but that's like the general theme, if that makes sense. So I would say maybe escape in a healthy way, and if you can incorporate some kind of organization or planning as well, then that will satisfy Virgo moon as well as Mercury and Venus in Capricorn as well. That would kind of satisfy all these energies. Escaping a little bit, but doing it in a way that's healthy and satisfies your long-term situation, if that makes sense. Okay. Going forward to Thursday, December 15th, Moon continues on through Virgo. It's still not squaring the Sun yet. We still don't get that third quarter moon exactly yet, but it's beginning to ramp up. You'll already be definitely feeling it on Thursday for sure. And again, this is very kind of hectic. It's very multifaceted. Sun in Sagittarius has a lot of different sides to it already, and then we're combining that with Moon in Virgo, which also has a lot of different sides to it. So it's just it's just kind of like chaotic, very much chaotic for sure. There are a couple commonalities between these energies. Both Sagittarius and Virgo are intellectual, so there's this kind of intellectual vibe going on. It's promoting thinking and learning. Really all the mutable signs have to do with learning in one way or another. But Sagittarius and Virgo definitely do this. They definitely do it in very different ways. Sagittarius is more like hands-on, exploring the world, but this has been combined with an analytical focus as well with Moon in Virgo. So wanting to explore the world, let's go have experiences and be hands-on, but then also be detached enough to observe and measure and maybe like read or consume information through reading, writing, watching something like that. And then also taking into account what is becoming a third quarter moon, not quite yet. Third quarter moons represent a crisis in consciousness. So the fact that the moon and the sun are in these cerebral signs is especially interesting. Um, third quarter moons are a lot like quarter moons in general are times of immense change. Okay, but the first quarter moon is more about physical change, like taking action in a very tangible, physical kind of way. This, what we're about to happen, this third quarter moon is more mental, spiritual, it's more kind of non-physically oriented. It can definitely still, seep into the physical world and still result in a lot of, increased physical activity for sure. And we're already going to be experiencing that on Thursday. So people being more wound up, energetic, anxious, stressed, also more motivated and inspired though as well. So we're going to have a lot of that in the physical, but this is primarily a mental thing, a cerebral thing, not only because of the aspect but also the signs involved. So you may be kind of going through some kind of idea or struggling with some kind of perception in your life. How should I perceive this or what should I do about it? It's very very analytical again. So lots of questions going on right now, I would think. Lots of learning, but also a lot of debating and like struggling with information, struggling with I was gonna say feeling, but it's more cerebral. So if you are struggling with a feeling, you're gonna be analyzing the crap out of it, if that makes sense. Okay, besides that, on Thursday we also have Mercury squaring Chiron, which is kind of an interesting aspect. So it looks like if you want to get really technical, it happens in the first half of the day. Mercury at 11 degrees Capricorn, squaring Chiron at 11 degrees Aries. So okay, so I think this is interesting. Whenever we get squares between Capricorn and Aries, it's intense, not in the way, not in like a mutable way where there's all this different stuff going on. It's very multi-sided. It's more it's more just two sides completely butting heads with Capricorn Aries squares, because Capricorn and Aries have a lot in common, but their commonalities don't help them blend together. If anything, they keep them from blending. So in other words, like Capricorn and Aries are both signs that involve initiation and leadership, and kind of solidarity. Both are pretty stubborn because they're very confident in what they want to do. They both are very much forward thinking, goal oriented. They both have high standards. So yeah, so a lot in common there, but what they're initiating is different. The way they go about initiating is very different. So okay, so applying this to these planets, Mercury and Capricorn is, we're thinking, communicating, we're coming across information involving having a kind of slow, steady plan for the future. Being very goal oriented, being very kind of no nonsense. Like, let's get realistic. What can we do here? How do we make things sustainable? How do we use our resources effectively? So that is clashing with Chiron and Aries, which is more about past wounds, past traumas, and the expression of all that, demanding understanding, um, sort of empathy, but it's more the selfish side of empathy, which is kind of a contradiction. So so there may be this kind of clash between maybe wanting to communicate, wanting to have a conversation, and uh, gain. It's, like, it always ends up being like a therapeutical thing, I think, or therapeutic thing with Chiron and Aries, or Chiron in general, I guess. But this is the more dysfunctional side of that, I think. There may be some kind of conversation where people want to be understood, and this could have to do with the far past or the far future. They want to know that there's mutual understanding, but with Chiron and Aries, I think sometimes we desire that so much, we feel like we need that we come across in a kind of belligerent way, and then we get the opposite of what we intended. We create more strife and more lack of understanding, misunderstanding, if that makes sense. So I think this would be kind of triggered here. The way we're communicating just isn't compatible with Chiron and Aries. So the way we're communicating is not compatible with our these past traumas, and like how they're coming up, how they're bubbling to the surface, if that makes sense. So so I guess my answer to that, I would say to just take it with a grain of salt. I feel like that's my advice like half the time, but for this, I would just kind of, if you have to have conversations like this, I would definitely expect that people may be heated, they may be hurting, there may be pain there, and so that pain may be causing them to be very reactive. So you know people may be intense, and they may not necessarily be trying to be on the offensive side or to be instigating, but it's just coming from a place of emotion or intensity, especially when, if anything involving anyone feeling misunderstood on Thursday, that could come across very intense. So I would say just know that there may be another side to it, and I would just kind of give it time and just kind of take a chill approach to it, because there's not much to do about it on Thursday. It's a square, um, it may be a time of initiating something, but I would just kind of tread lightly and do it slowly. I would go with the Capricorn approach, and um, just just kind of go easy on things, because otherwise it could be very reactionary and kind of volatile, if that makes sense. Okay, going forward to Friday, December 16th. So finally, we get the actual third quarter moon. It's happening in the early morning Eastern Standard Time. And okay, so Sun is at 24 degrees Sagittarius, and Moon will be at 24 degrees Virgo. Excuse me. So again, it's more of the themes that we were already experiencing on Thursday, but now it's coming to a head. It's the kind of the peak intensity. And again, like I said before, Sun and Sagittarius, Moon and Virgo, these are both mutable signs. They both have to do with learning and being adaptable, being open to new information that may, change what you already are, and that's why it has to do with, being adaptable. You have to be adaptable if you're going to learn something new. So it may behoove you to have a sort of slightly less rigid identity today, because there may be some kind of changes, if that makes sense. I think I'm going to contradict myself, but I think in order to have, a really strong identity, your identity has to be sort of malleable enough to incorporate new experiences, new information, new knowledge. So that is exactly what is kind of going on here, if that makes sense. Also, again, in a more mundane kind of way of taking this aspect, Sun, Sagittarius, Moon, and Virgo, both mutable signs. There's just a lot going on. There's a lot of different situations happening on Friday, and everyone always asks me, is this a good thing or a bad thing? But I wouldn't say it's either. I think I think if you just went into this aspect blind and didn't know about astrology, you may experience it as a bad thing, especially if you don't have a lot of mutable signs, um, because this is a time of intense change, and quarter moons always make us feel. I always say they make us feel. They can make us feel anxious, stressed, restless. So that's the quote unquote negative side of it. But if we know about this and if we use this to our advantage, quarter moons are just propelling us to make change. So rather than being anxious or stressed, if we just take this energy and apply it, be active. There has to be some kind of outlet for this energy. Do something new. And, I already dropped a bunch of hints on like what, you could do, I think, but definitely anything involving learning, higher learning, really any kind of learning. Virgo and Sagittarius together cover, almost every kind of learning, whether it be, really like little detailed stuff or, broader, far-reaching concepts, philosophy, really anything involving learning is going to come up with this aspect. But also like organizing, Moon is in Virgo, and it's a, third quarter moon in Virgo. That's the spotlight here. So yeah, organizing. Virgo is all about organizing, not only physically but emotionally. Like Virgo does have a lot to do with, I think, the mental spiritual connection, if that makes sense. I know Virgo isn't typically regarded as a spiritual sign for sure, but it does kind of bring up things like that. So, like in other words, you have to have a really strong relationship with your physicality. You have to be organized and know how to take care of yourself financially before you explore spirituality. So I think these types of things may come up. Not only because of the moon in Virgo, but also it's squaring Sun and Sagittarius, which is bringing up these more philosophical or spiritual ideals as well. And we're still just barely stepping out of that square between Sun and Neptune and Pisces. So there's still there's still that going on as well. This focus on spirituality. So really, there's a bunch of stuff going on. Like I said, there's a lot of themes here. The most basic way I can say it is this is a crisis in consciousness. Be malleable, be adaptable, be open. Your opinions may change, others' opinions may change, perspectives may change. That is what a third quarter moon in Virgo would be for. So yeah, learn something new, make some kind of change. Based on this chart as a whole, I wouldn't say this is a great time for like a super monumental change or like initiating something really big necessarily, unless of course if your chart falls a certain way. But for all of us as a whole, I think this is more a time of like editing, tweaking our lives, changing this or that, maybe changing our regimen a little bit, changing our lifestyle. That's what these energies in Virgo often have to do with. So it's definitely a lot of change, maybe a lot of little change in a lot of different areas, um, that type of thing. Hopefully that makes sense. I keep saying that. Oh, okay. One last thing. Later in the day, Friday night. Well, I guess Friday afternoon Eastern Standard Time, Moon does enter Libra. So I think this is always nice when we get a kind of intense aspect like this, immediately followed by the Moon changing signs. In other words, like third quarter Moon, really intense and kind of acute during the middle part of the day, but then pretty briefly after that, Moon, leaves Virgo, like ditches this whole aspect. It's like I'm out of here, enters Libra, so it's much more chill energy. So we get that intense peak in the middle of the day, but then pretty shortly after that, we'll kind of coast off of that, and there'll be a more relaxed energy as Moon enters Libra, because Libra's a lot more of a chill sign. It's still intellectual, like Virgo. It still has to do with learning, maybe, or studying things, but it's more conversational. It's more relaxed, that type of thing. And Libra sextile Sagittarius, so Moon will already be, at least by sign, stepping into a sextile with the Sun. So stepping into a much more harmonious type of aspect. Okay, Saturday, December 17th. Um, excuse me. So Moon continues through Libra, and like I said, this is very chill energy. Moon in Libra is especially great because Moon represents our emotional side, and Libra is pretty much the least emotional sign, I would say. I know a lot of people don't always realize that, but I really do think Libra is the least emotional sign. So having the planet which represents emotions in a sign which is relatively unemotional, it makes us all more kind of even keel, more detached, more cerebral, more able to process things like mentally. So I wouldn't say that's a net positive or negative, but I would say it makes things more relaxed or kind of stable, steady, if that makes sense. Because rather than reacting emotionally, we can think things through, kind of. And don't get me wrong, I think emotions can be great. I think they make life interesting. Humans are very emotional, and that can be, there's a wide range there for sure. But Moon and Libra makes things very stable, and Sagittarius and Libra go together pretty well. Um, okay. Besides that, we do have Mercury trining Uranus. So Mercury at 15 degrees Taurus, trining Uranus at 15 degrees. Mercury at 15 degrees Capricorn, trining Uranus at 15 degrees Taurus. So this could mean that you may have some kind of revelation or sudden realization, sudden shift in your perception, especially involving finances or your relationship with the physical world. This could have to do with nature. Could also have to do with resources in general, time, energy, money. How are you allocating those? How are you making money? How are you spending it? How are you investing it? All of that, you may have some kind of realization, or things could be slightly easier as well. Yeah, so I would say this could be maybe positive for anything like economical in nature. Um, and besides that, we may also become more aware of some intense changes that are happening financially or physically. That could be individually or collectively as well. Um, and the reason why I say that is because Uranus is retrograde in Taurus, so it's there's all this kind of behind the scenes stuff completely changing our economy right now and our money, and we wouldn't typically be super aware of that. It is behind the scenes, like I said, but because Mercury is making this trine to Uranus, it brings the attention there, it brings the focus there, if that makes sense. I keep saying if that makes sense. I'm going to try to stop doing that. That's really the main thing, though. Yeah, Moon in Libra. All in all, it looks like a chill day. Moon in Libra makes things very chill. I want to stress that. Definitely a relief from this third quarter moon like build up we had at the end of the week. But yeah, Saturday pretty chill day. Maybe some sudden shifts financially though. More easy than negative. Trines are generally easy. Okay, and then lastly for Sunday, December 18th, Moon continues through Libra pretty much all day. Technically, Moon enters Scorpio. It depends on your time zone. Eastern Standard Time, Moon enters Scorpio just after midnight, Sunday night, going into Monday morning. But don't sue me if I'm technically wrong for your time zone. I guess is what I'm trying to say. But for Eastern Standard Time, Moon will be in Libra all day, and for basically all of us, Moon will be in Libra basically all the day. And we do get that exact sextile between the Moon and the Sun today. So I think that's super awesome. I always say that every time the Moon trines or sextiles the Sun, it's typically an easy day. It's the best chance of everyone, having a nice day, having a good, stable kind of energy. Sextiles aren't, as intense as trines for sure, but still, Sun in Sagittarius, Moon in Libra. Both these energies are wanting to enjoy themselves, so supporting us in being maybe a tiny bit hedonistic or wanting to treat ourselves for sure. Also, though, both Sagittarius and Libra love conversations. They love interacting with others. They love a good party. Very social signs for sure. So Sunday could be a really good time for having maybe a relaxed like kind of get together. I don't think this is like a raging party type of vibe. Um, More like a relaxed get together type of thing. But obviously it depends on your own chart. But yeah, this could just also have to do with treating yourself, enjoying an experience. Both these signs are intellectual as well, so that's part of why they love a good conversation. They love kind of analyzing things to some extent as well. So this could also be a really great day for learning too. Okay, that pretty much wraps it up. I'm gonna change the date here just because it makes it easier for me to edit. But okay, so next week we do have a bunch of stuff happening. To be completely honest, this week there's not much going on other than the Mercury pre-shadow. But next week there's a whole bunch of stuff happening. Jupiter entering Aries, Sun entering Capricorn, a new moon in Capricorn, and Chiron turning direct as well. Which I'm not super excited about that one. But Jupiter moving into Aries is exciting. It has recently retrograded back into Pisces, and so now that it's entering Aries again, it's gonna stay there, for basically all of next year. So that's pretty exciting, I think. Jupiter, which is all about expansion, putting that in Aries, which is all about pioneering, entering a new phase, collectively and as a society. I think that could be really exciting, really pushing forward into a new kind of chapter here. I almost said new age. Maybe that could be true a little bit as well. But yeah, definitely a lot of new things happening next week. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next week.